Everybody, welcome to this month of Staffing Monthly, and I am excited to be continuing down that path that we started last month, looking to figure out how do we get more and better people into our recruitment pipeline, into our funnels, into our agencies, so we can actually fill more orders. And from some of the conversations I had last month, you know that they were great jumping off points. So I wanted to actually find somebody that is an expert at teaching recruiters exactly how to do that. So I've actually reached out and connected with John Ruffini. And John has actually been in professional development of recruiters for the last few years. And that's exactly what he does. Every single recruiter that they hire at his organization goes through his training program, and it sets the bedrock foundation of how to be a successful recruiter in the healthcare industry, but it's pretty universal skill sets and tools that he's teaching them. And in addition to that, John is also the co-host of Recruiters with No Limits podcast, which is pretty epic. And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But John, thank you so much for being here. Glad to have you in Staffing Monthly.
Dan, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And fun fact, we're nearly neighbors. And, I figure I've scoured the world, and you and I probably live 30 minutes apart, and we're all dealing with Hurricane Ian right now. Is that crazy?
That is nuts. And there's been some serious rainfall, and here's to more.
That's the truth. So John, talk to me a little bit about your background and why you decided to go from working kind of in staffing and operations into a training role of professional development. I think that requires a bit of a passion, but tell me what landed you there.
You nailed it there. It is a passion. So I've been in the recruiting industry for over 25 years now and earned my chops working a full desk in the perm world, mostly in the areas of accounting and finance and IT. And somewhere along the line, I had this ridiculous notion that, I'd like to move into management and make less money. so I enjoyed, I was very good with rebuilding and starting up branches, and that morphed, I'm always into a mentorship type capacity. So it naturally kind of morphed into part of the roles that I was in as a leader. And then ultimately an opportunity came up to go into a full-time role like that with a pretty large organization. And I really enjoyed it. So for the past 10 to 12 years, that's been the focus of my personal career, is to develop other talent and help them ramp up faster, be more successful, and hopefully not make the same mistakes I did.
So that's pretty awesome. And what we were talking about before we kicked off here is that your training program is kind of developed by you based on, your expertise in the industry, but it's comprehensive. It's over 400 hours of training. Is that right?
It is. Well, all in, when all is said and done, that wouldn't surprise me. We put every recruiter through a 2-week, what we call a boot camp, and it's virtual. We went virtual once COVID hit, and we haven't gone back. And the way we structured it, they go through about 40 to 42 hour-long sessions over that 2-week period. And it really gives them, it is a training that I developed, but by no means, as well as I do, the way we learn and get successful in this business is we kind of steal from everybody. You learn over the course of your career. The way that I train today is nowhere near the way I trained 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So it continues to evolve as the industry evolves. You have to stay current. You have to adapt to the changes on how people recruit and attract talent, which I know we're going to talk about. And the training that I do with the recruiters is basically really focused on instilling the fundamentals of recruiting and getting grounded there and then building upon that.
So what are the fundamentals? Like, I know that a lot of people come from all walks of recruiting and different stages in their career, but as you see it, what are the fundamentals of recruiting to help launch a successful career?
Today more than ever, Dan, it's, when I look at fundamentals of recruiting, it's things like having an effective introduction. It's knowing how to communicate, how to craft an email, how to craft the text, how to get someone's attention and be different from all the other recruiters that are calling that same person. It's not assuming that someone is a perfect fit for a job without getting to know them. Things like that, and teaching that craft. And really today, especially, instilling in recruiters to really be authentic, be genuine, be a person, because you're going to ask your candidates to allow you to get to know them more than just a candidate. You want to get to know them as a person, what drives them, what's important to them. So many recruiters to this day look at a resume, call someone up. Hey, I see your background. You'd be a perfect fit for this job. Or I've got a perfect match for you, before they even get to know the person. So the way that I train is get to know the person first, earn the right to present them opportunities. And those opportunities should simply be what they're telling you is important to them. And if you do that, even though recruiting is sales, you really never have to sell anything. You just have to be a really good listener and provide solutions.
So you used a word that is, it's more than a buzzword right now. It seems to be the same theme that I hear all of the thought leaders like yourself that I interview. And you use the word authentic and being authentic. And I think that's what candidates really crave right now, is that authentic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually speaking with, I think it was Adam Conrad from Great Recruiters that turned me on to this. Have you ever Googled the phrase recruiters are, just in Google, to see what the search results come up as?
No, I haven't, but now I'm going to.
You should totally do it. It's you should. It's alarming to see what Google suggests is how to finish that sentence. But I think that everything in there is because there's been I guess an inauthentic or disingenuine presence. So how do you convey that if in an email? Like, how can you actually have a recruiter share authenticity via an email when you actually lose body language and tonality as two of the main parts of communication?
It's challenging. And in our world, in healthcare recruiting, a lot of nurses, for example, your first outreach might be a text, because that seems to be a very popular and preferred mode of communication with those candidates, because they're on a hospital floor working. Many of them don't even get a chance to check their email, but they do check their phones. So, I subscribe to the practice of, in that initial outreach, again, following up, it might be very different, but in that initial outreach, you want to be genuine. You don't want to come across selling a job or just saying, I want to put you in this job. The approach that I think works best in this market is, I just want to get to know you. I don't know if I can help you or not. I don't know where you are in your career, where you want to go, but I'd like the opportunity to learn, because if I'm able to help you, I want to be a resource that can help you. And it's got to be sincere, but that sincere approach of just wanting to get to know them as a person and find out what's important to them and seeing if I might have something that's of interest, versus, hey, I got to put you into this job and this job only. So not being so short-sighted.
So that's interesting. So now actually that makes me want to take a step back and say, how do you recruit recruiters for your organization that inherently possess those characteristic traits where they are authentic, they are sincere, especially coming into a very production driven, metric driven industry like recruiting and healthcare recruiting?
We've got a pretty solid process right now that we've been using to identify the type of profile that seems to be successful within our organization in the recruiting base. It's not perfect by any means. And what you find out is, once someone gets in, again, the way the method that I teach is, it's not gospel. So I give them techniques, I give them fundamentals, I give them a foundation, but I require them to adapt all those techniques to their own personality, because the way that I do something might not be the same way that you do something. And again, sure, if I tell you to do it this way and this way only, it's not going to be authentic. So
it boxes you in. Yeah.
So some people come in and try and think, yeah, I'll just, wing it and do it my own way. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But if you trust the roadmap that we give you, 9 times out of 10, it's going to work. And you just have to have faith that the process will work. So we do a pretty good job of vetting. It's not perfect. And there are plenty of people that we hire that have never done recruiting before. We've hired nurses that got burned out that are now coming in to recruit nurses, and they're doing phenomenally well. So it's interesting.
Interesting. So are there underlying characteristics that you might identify or that you see as like maybe 1 or 2 traits that somebody can have that's never been in this industry, that you just know, hey, if they have these 1 or 2 things, they're likely to be more successful as a recruiter then?
There's a lot of traits that I'd zero in on, Dan, but if I had to, pick a few that stand out, number one, first and foremost, I think you have to be a very good active listener. You have to really take the time to be quiet on your end of the phone and listen to the information you're getting. Because recruiting, it's all about relationships, and you build those relationships through the information that's exchanged. And if you're not listening and you're just focused on what you're going to say next or what you're going to sell, then it really loses that value.
Yeah.
You also have to be an effective, sincere communicator. You have to be an engaged person. So how do you quantify that? It's hard in an interview, but you have to be a strong, active listener. I'm trying to go back to your question because I'm going off tangent. I'm sorry.
It's okay. This is where we live, man.
And you've got to have an innate work ethic. 9 times out of 10, my recruiter at the competition is not necessarily better than I am. They're just outworking me. So, you've got to have that. I always tell recruiters, I can teach you how to recruit. I can't teach your work ethic. You either have that or you don't. And that's something, especially for someone who's coming into a new company or a new industry, that first year is hard.
It's a grind.
Yeah,
it's a hustle.
Up and down. You get through it and you're in good shape, but getting through that first year, you got to be mentally tough to absorb it. And you've got to be prepared to work really hard.
Yeah, no, that is definitely the truth coming into this industry. It is not, I don't want to scare anybody away, but the first year is really a grind. But once you get past that and you get into your groove and you get your skill sets and your fundamentals and your pipe flow, your pipelines going, like, it becomes a really rewarding industry.
I agree.
So I love that. I appreciate you sharing that. I hadn't anticipated going kind of upstream there, but so downstream, you get your people. And have you noticed, or were there any quantifiable metrics that said how long people stayed, or maybe their level of production, like prior to your type of training or them doing this type of training program versus after, to sort of say, hey, can we actually qualify or measure the benefit or the gain of investing in training like this? Because I feel like a lot of agencies don't take this deliberate of an approach, in my opinion.
I agree with you. It's a lot of agencies that are smaller don't have the resources, so they might pull in external resources to help them augment their training. A lot of it is just, hey, sit next to Joe and watch him, and it's just an observation type of thing.
Yeah.
Depends on how Joe's doing it, but if Joe's a senior recruiter and he's established, then Nancy's not going to learn the right way to do it because Nancy can't operate that way right now. Nancy's starting and Joe's already up here. So we've been able to look back prior to when I joined the company in the fall of 2018, and we've noticed that the recruiters tend to ramp up about 30% faster now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's been working. And again, we're in a constant hiring mode, and we run a boot camp every month. So the odd thing is every month we're tweaking it. So we get the feedback from the prior class. We're always looking to re-engineer it. We're never satisfied. It's not static. So we're constantly trying to say, how can we make it better? What can we add? What are we missing? And then after they finish that training and get in their groove, we're also providing an online micro video library for follow-up trainings for them.
Nice. Do you use a specific like LMS platform for that, or is it something you created in-house, or what are you using?
No, it's the one we use is the one that our parent company uses. We're part of HCA Healthcare, and they use an LMS called HealthStream. So
okay. So it's a little bit custom tailored just for that health industry, yeah?
I assume. It's the first time I've used it, so I don't know any different.
And in your professional opinion, would you recommend that other agencies actually have training modules and LMSs in their repertoire?
Absolutely. You've got to have some form of live and I think follow-up micro video trainings. Again, make those videos micro for a reason, because attention spans are really, really short. So, we're talking videos anywhere from 2 to 8 minutes long, not that long. So quickly digestible.
Yeah.
The best thing I can tell folks is when your recruiters get on the desk, you've got to have, if you're the manager, if you're a director responsible for that resource, you've got to invest the time to sit with them, to listening to them make calls, to coach them real time, because that's your biggest investment. If they don't succeed, you don't succeed. So while it may be a time suck, that's where your time should be. Yeah.
It's an investment. Really the time that you put into your people to develop them is an investment that you're making. And if you invest it wisely, you're going to get returns just like the best investors of capital. It will pay dividends. So So let's go downstream then, because I'm still on this vein of how do we get more and better people. So what are you doing right now? It's a wonky labor market. It's been a weird couple of years. So what are you doing to stay relevant and coach your people to keep their pipelines full, their fill rates shorter and stronger? Like, any advice or guidance around that for our viewers?
I don't think it's any different from other firms, or maybe it is. I don't know, but you've got it when you come into this business. It might not be your main driver, but part of the business of becoming a recruiter is the income potential, right? So you've got to be driven by that. And I always tell people there's a lot less stressed careers to make a base salary that you'd make as a recruiter. Go do something else and you can make that amount of money. But
that's true.
If you're coming in for a base salary, then that's really not the job for you. You're coming in for the potential commissions.
Upside. Yep.
Absolutely. So that's where the pipeline management comes in. That's where, teaching folks how to manage a pipeline, how to accurately forecast, trying to troubleshoot and be realistic. Hey, if this deal is going to fall apart, let's not get surprised. Let's realize it could fall apart, but on our terms, not their terms, type of thing. And making sure that, they taste that success as early as possible. Hopefully you'll agree, you're really not a believer until you make that first placement. You close that first deal. Then all of a sudden, it's like potato chips. I want another one.
Yeah.
And getting them to get that taste of success early on is really key to them really enjoying it as a career and a lifestyle. The longer it takes, the more they start to let self-doubt set in, and that can be a killer all around.
No, I agree with you there, and because it builds confidence. Once you see it, you get, results. It builds confidence, and ideally you can start to get predictable results, which builds stronger confidence, and it keeps you motivated to keep just trudging through, so I agree with you there. So I know I've peppered you with a lot of questions on that side. I do want to switch gears with the time we have left and talk about your podcast. So you partnered up with none other than the Staffing Shark, who again was in one of our prior issues talking about how he's disrupting the industry. And you guys are on a mission to be recruiters with no limits. So I'm not going to lie. When I look at the Staffing Shark, like, he embodies all of that no limit stuff. Like, the guy is next level, Kenny Chesney of staffing. I see you seem much more methodical. You seem more reserved. Like, is there a side of you that I don't know, or are you guys yin and yang? Like, talk to me about like how that came together and what you're trying to do with the podcast.
We're very much yin and yang. So he's the unpredictable Energizer Bunny, and I'm kind of the steady voice of reason. So we offset really well. We came together via our memberships at the American Staffing Association, and which I've been involved with for years and years, very actively.
Great group.
Richard's also involved. And, we came together. He threw out the idea. He said, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "It sounds great." There really wasn't anything specifically like it at the time. And we've been going ever since. We try to do it every week. We've missed a few, but it's been really good. We've had some really, really good traction with it, and been fortunate enough to get some pretty high visibility folks in the staffing industry on with us.
It's amazing. And that's one thing about this industry is people are willing to share. It can come off as a very cutthroat, competitive industry, and it can be. But on the flip side, there is a sense of community in this industry where people will share and they'll say, "Hey, this is the way that I'm doing things." And I don't know if it's a genuine openness or if it's just a confidence that I'm going to teach you exactly the way I do it, because I know there's no way you'll be able to do it as good as me kind of mindset. But the information's out there, right?
Yes. And you're right. People are willing. The longer I'm in the industry, the more I see that, and the more that I see myself doing it. And I think, there's a little bit of I think all recruiters at some point, we all think we're the best recruiters at what we do. That's why we stay in the industry as long as we do. And that's why we build the relationships that we do. So your comment is probably not far from the truth. Yeah, I'm going to share it with you because you're still not going to beat me.
Yeah. We're all a little competitive. I get it.
If you do, kudos to you. When I was running branches, I always would tell my teams, look, if I'm the top biller in the branch, there's something wrong. It's like, I shouldn't be the top biller as the manager. You guys should blow me away. And that's what I wanted.
That's honestly how I am. I share my knowledge and wisdom that I've learned from every failure that I've made openly, because I do believe that, one, because it's mine and it's, curated in a way like that, or, crafted, that I can deliver it better. But I invite anyone to use what I teach better than me, because I want nothing but great success for everybody. Because I truly do believe that, high tide rises all ships, and it's going to take all of us working together to change what Google seems to think about us.
I'm gonna do that as soon as we're off this, because I'm very scared at what that result is going to show.
I guarantee you that you're going to do that, and I bet you I get a message in my inbox with, I don't know, maybe some laughing emojis or something. But anyway, so Recruiters with No Limits, I know you've got a pretty amazing guest coming up. We're obviously airing this, recording this just before you've got Joyce Russell from the Adecco Group coming on. I know you've not had that interview yet, but you're speaking incredibly highly of her. So if you're watching this video right now, go check out that episode. But John, here's my question for you. You've been running that podcast almost all year. What are the top 2 takeaways? Like, what you're like, wow, this was amazing content that I learned just from interviewing people that you can share with this audience?
Holy cow. I've always been a copious note taker, and anyone who's seen the podcast will see me at some point looking down, and it's because I'm always taking notes from our guests. I learn something on every show. One of the things, Dan, that really opened my eyes is I realized that I really did not know an in-depth understanding of what DE&I was. And we had a few guests come on that were DE&I specialists. And I got diversity, I got equity, never understood really, okay, well, what's the inclusion part? And
right.
They were able to, we had one guest in particular, her name's not coming to me right now. She was so eloquent at putting it in layman's terms that like a light bulb just went off in my head. And I was like, okay, now I totally get it. It's like, thank you. So, that's been, I know it's a hot buzzword and everything, but it really, when you look at it from a leadership perspective in recruiting, especially, there's a lot of diversity at the recruiter level.
Yeah.
The higher you get up, the less that diversity seems to be present. And you really do want a diverse set of minds, strictly because if everybody thinks the same way, then you're not going to have anybody challenging your direction, your decisions, your plans. So it's not about just, oh, I need to hit a quota. It's more about, let me get some different minds in here to help challenge what I think is the best decision that we're going to make. I want people to push back and say, well, have you ever thought about this? And I want that to be from a mind that thinks differently from mine. And understanding that whole concept really made sense on why you look at the greatest of great organizations, why they are that way, because they typically have that.
It's so true, and groupthink is a thing, and it can put you in a box, and it's also diverse thinking through diverse lenses of experience in life will make you more relatable to the holistic world, right?
All said.
And if you are in a recruiting industry and you want to fill jobs for your clients, let's be honest, you need to attract as many people as possible. So you have to open up, your filters, your lenses, whatever, to get as many people in there. And that's actually that's the superfluous reason about why DE&I is important. But if you want to really grow a strong organization that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to stand the ebbs and flows of human nature and what's in and what's out, like that's really where that DE&I comes to play. And that's going to give you a bedrock or a root system in your company that's going to, really stand the test of time, because everything ebbs and flows over a long enough period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So, all right. So that's one. I'm going to count that as one. Give me one more amazing takeaway from the Recruiters with No Limits podcast.
The other amazing takeaway, and there's been so many, I've got to give a shout to the women who are now known as the Lady Leaders Book Club. And these are a group of women, all powerful, well-known women in the staffing industry, that came together during COVID. And they started a book club. And then through their just staying in touch virtually, they decided to write a book together to share how, as women, they were able to advance into senior executive roles in the industry and make an impact, and sharing, being very vulnerable and sharing some of the challenges that they faced, both in the personal and professional lives. As a guy who has a staff of 3 women under him, I bought the book for all of them, and I'm sending them to seminars that these folks do. they created an incredible movement within the staffing industry to champion women in staffing. And it all came about through a grassroots effort that, came about during COVID, just by a group of girls that were getting together to stay in touch with each other. It's pretty wild.
Is that the Rise Up book with like Lauren B.
Yes.
Jones and all them?
That is it.
So if you saw me like peeking around, like I have it on my bookshelf I was going to try to run around and off scream and go grab it, but
it's a great read. It's called Together We Rise, and
that's it. There it is. It's
a really great read.
Yeah, I actually ran into a couple of the women that were part of that grassroots group that shared stories in there at the Aviante Connect conference. And one of the women had a book, and then she's like, "Oh, I want to give it to you." And she's like, "I already got this book." And then she's like, "Oh, anyone else like need this or, And I was like, I would love a copy because I've got 2 young daughters that I'm fully aware are going to have different experiences, have a different lens that they view the world through, different opportunities that they're going to have to navigate being, women that my son might not have. And I'm like, I would appreciate any perspective that I can possibly gain to help, kind of Sherpa them on their journey, because I know that I won't have relevant experience that can really translate to what journey they're going to have to be on. So I was quick to snap that book up. It is a good read. I would recommend it. And in my mind, I've not put this out to them yet, but I actually, next March, I would love it if we could actually get as many of them as possible to be the interviews for Staffing Monthly in that month, just to really highlight, women in staffing and women leadership and whatnot. So if any of you are watching, consider this your informal invite and keep a lookout for your inbox, because I'm going to be inviting you on to really share that knowledge and promote those stories in Staffing Monthly for March 23.
They are usually more than happy to do so. So it'll be a great conversation. So wait a minute, I got to back up. So you have 2 girls and a boy?
I do.
Yet another thing we have in common, Dan.
Get out of here, man. Get out of here, man. We got, what? At some point, we just got to meet in the middle, like just meet in Fort Lauderdale, I guess, and grab a cup of coffee or something.
Sure. We will make that happen.
All right. So I got to reciprocate this last thing before we land this plane. So I just did a shout out invite. So who's somebody that you would love to have on the podcast that you'd like to just kind of throw their name out to the universe on right now on Staffing Monthly?
Wow. That's a loaded question.
It is. And you don't have to say, you don't have to say me. I wasn't like fishing for invitations, if that's what you meant by loaded. I mean,
you're first on my list, Dan.
Go big. Oh man, you just no. But let's do it. Like, who's your big ask that you'd love to get, and then maybe we can figure out how to make that happen together.
Within the staffing industry, I'd like to get Danny Cahill on.
All right, going OG.
Outside of the staffing industry, I'd like to get Billy Joel on, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, we'll start with Danny. All right.
Yeah, Danny.
Oh man.
Yes, he was pretty influential early on in my recruiting career, and he's one of the best in the business.
That's OG right there, man. He, Barb, Bruno. I mean, they are like the golden royalty of staffing training. That's some stuff right there. Yeah. Let's try to make that happen. Let's make it happen. I'd love to hear that interview.
Put it out there now.
Yeah. So Danny, you're on notice. You've been served. Billy Joel, you too, man.
I don't know that Billy's going to be watching my podcast or yours.
Hey, don't sell me short, man. This has got a global reach.
That's true. Okay, fair enough.
All right. John, man, I've had an amazing time. I really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us and just sharing some of your knowledge. I'm definitely going to invite you back because there's a couple of other topics that I would love to get into that are on my roadmap for future issues. So definitely keep a lookout for that. If anyone wants to know more about how you train, or if they want to recommend someone for the podcast, just want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that?
Easiest way nowadays is just go find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active out there. Find me, connect with me, follow me, and you can reach me there.
Awesome. I will make sure that link is right here on the page. And again, man, grateful to connect. Glad we're in each other's backyards. I'm sure we'll be actually linking up in person soon. And I'm going to keep an eye out to see when Danny's on the show.
There you go. Dan, thanks so much for having me on. This has been a blast.